October, a small town in Vermont. The rain comes down like it has something to say. A motorhome sits behind a closed gas station. White paint long surrendered to rust. A cardboard sign on the door, for sale, $9. Inside, past a narrow hallway, there is another door, gray metal, painted shut, locked, for 8 years. An old man at the pumps has been waiting. He has kept the engine running, changed the water bottles every Tuesday morning, never once opened the door. Tonight, a 17-year-old girl walks 3 miles through the rain, $9 in her pocket, a folded photograph in her book, and somewhere east of this town, headlights are turning onto the highway. October, cold rain, Vermont, kind of cold, the kind that has knives in it. Inside the small 2-story house on Mercer Street, Eleanor Calloway stood in the hallway with her back to the wall. 17, 5'5", hair the color of wet wheat, a backpack at her feet that didn't weigh as much as a backpack ought to. Everybody called her Nora, except for the man standing between her and the front door. He called her Charlotte because he had never bothered to learn the right name, because he had never cared to. Vernon Hale, 48, tall, a pressed shirt at 9 o'clock at night, which told you something about him without anyone having to say. He glanced at his watch. 5 minutes, Charlotte. She did not answer. 5 minutes. Then I call the sheriff. Tell him I've got a runaway in my house. A runaway. The word landed under her ribs and stayed there, because she wasn't running. She was being moved, like a chair he had never liked the look of. Her mother stood at the kitchen sink. The faucet was running. The dishes were not. Her hands rested on the edge of the counter like she was holding herself up against something stronger than gravity. Adelaide Calloway, 46, hair pulled back, shoulders rounded in a way they had not been when Nora was small. Her back was to the hallway. She had not turned around once in the last 6 minutes. Nora bent, picked up the backpack, 3 shirts, 1 hoodie, 1 pair of jeans, a toothbrush in a paper towel, a phone at 12% battery, a paperback book with the cover taped at the spine, and inside the book folded twice a photograph. 8 years old, her father kneeling at a workbench, his hand on her shoulder, her in a denim jacket too big because it had belonged to him. They were both smiling. She was 9 in that picture. The world had been kind for 9 years. 8 years of it had not been. The math Nora thought was almost even. Almost. She slung the backpack over her shoulder and stepped toward the door. Mom, the word came out softer than she meant. Her mother's shoulders rose, once, like she was about to speak. Then they fell again. The faucet kept running. The dishes kept not moving. That was when Nora knew. Not that her mother didn't love her. That was not the question. The question was something else. Something she would not be able to name for another week, in the back of a stranger's RV with a metal box in her hands. Vernon opened the door for her, like a butler, like a man helping a guest out of a dinner party that had simply run long. You'll thank me one day. Nora stepped past him. The door clicked shut behind her, not slammed, clicked, the soft sound of a man who knew he had won. She stood on the porch for half a second, just long enough to feel the temperature drop, just long enough to feel the rain start to soak through her hoodie. Then she walked. She did not look back, because if she looked back, she might never move forward again, and forward was the only direction left. Mercer Street ran south. South ran toward the rail tracks. The tracks ran toward the dead end of the old industrial road where the paper mill used to be, where nobody walked at night unless they had to. She had to. The streetlights were yellow and tired. Some flickered. Some had given up halfway through a block, leaving long stretches of black wet pavement between one circle of light and the next. She passed houses with the curtains drawn, televisions glowing blue through the gaps. She passed a dog that barked at her once and decided that was enough. She passed a man getting into a pickup truck. He looked at her. He looked away, because looking away was the easier of the two things to do. 3 minutes in her hoodie was soaked through. Her jeans went heavy with water. Her sneakers started making that small, sucking sound. Her hair stuck to the sides of her face. She did not cry. She wanted to. She had been wanting to for 2 years, but somewhere along the way, the part of her that cried had gone quiet. And now, when she needed it most, it would not come back. Her father's voice came back instead. He used to sit at the foot of her bed on nights like this, not nights this bad, but rainy ones, quiet ones, when she was little and afraid of the thunder. He used to say the worst things in life were not the storms. He used to say the worst things were the days that felt fine on the outside and were rotting on the inside. He used to say you could survive a storm, but you couldn't always survive a quiet kitchen. He had said a lot of things, her father, and then one morning when she was 9, he had not come home. The state troopers came at 6 in the morning, hats in their hands. They said his pickup had gone off the road at the bend near Brook Hollow. The fog had been heavy. The guardrail had been damaged for months and never repaired. The truck had burned. There wasn't much left. Adelaide had stood in the doorway with her palm pressed against her mouth, but she had not collapsed. In the movies, news like that brings a mother to her knees. Adelaide stayed upright, like she had been told the same thing in a dream the night before, and was only hearing it confirmed now. Nora had not understood that at 9. She understood it better now. Understanding it did not make it hurt less. She walked for 40 minutes. Her phone died around the 20-minute mark. She stopped trying to check it. She just kept walking. The town thinned out. Houses got farther apart. Trees got taller and darker. And then around the bend at the edge of the old county road, she saw the lights of the gas station, blurred through the rain like a smudge of yellow paint on wet glass. Brennan's Service. The sign was hand-painted, older than she was, propped against the front of a low cinder-block building with 2 pumps and a service bay around the side. Most of the bulbs in the overhang were dead. One of them flickered with that nervous twitch fluorescents get when they're about to quit for good. No car at either pump. The office window was lit a dim yellow. Somebody moved inside, slow, the way old men move at the end of a long shift. Nora stood at the edge of the lot. She let the rain run down her back. She did not know where she was going. She did not have a plan. She had $9 and some change in the front pocket of her jeans, a backpack, a photograph, a paperback book, and then she saw it, parked at the far end of the lot, behind the dumpsters, almost hidden in the dark, a motorhome from another decade, 22 feet, white paint that had given up trying to be white sometime during the Reagan administration, rust crawling up the sides like vines, one window cracked from the inside and patched with duct tape. The tires looked tired in a way tires shouldn't be able to look. Taped to the driver's side door was a piece of cardboard, the handwriting big, a little crooked, like a man with arthritis trying to write neatly. For sale, runs, sometimes, $10. Nora stared at it. She laughed. Once, a short, wet, miserable little laugh, like a hiccup, the kind of laugh you laugh when the universe has finally bottomed out and there is no further down to fall. $10 for a motorhome, $10 for a roof, $10 for a door that locked from the inside, a place that was hers and not his. She walked toward it slow, like the RV might run if it noticed her. She put one hand against the side. The metal was cold and wet and patient. It did not pull away from her. It did not tell her to leave. It just stood there in the rain. And for the first time that night, something in the world was not actively rejecting her. That was when the voice came from behind her. "You look good by it, miss." She turned around slow. The man who had stepped out from behind the office was somewhere in his 60s, big but not tall, the kind of big a man gets from 40 years of real work with his hands, shoulders that sloped from leaning over engines, forearms thick as fence posts, a belly that pushed gentle against his work shirt, white hair under a faded green cap with the name of a tractor company on the front, beard going gray at the edges, eyes tired, not unkind. He was wearing a canvas jacket that had been a respectable color a long time ago. Rain ran off the brim of his cap, made a small, steady waterfall in front of his face. "How much do you have, miss?" She wiped the water out of her eyes with the back of her hand. "It says 10. "I know what it says." He took a step closer, not threatening, just closer. He looked at the RV the way a man looks at an old dog he can't bring himself to put down. Then he looked at her the way a man looks when he has just done some arithmetic in his head and didn't like the answer. "How much do you have, miss?" She reached into her pocket. She did not know why she was being honest. She could have lied, said 10, saved face, but something about the way he asked it made her not want to lie. 9. She held it out. A crumpled 5, 3 folded singles, 4 quarters, a dime, the sum total of her existence. He looked at the money. He looked at her face. He looked at the backpack on her shoulder. He looked at the photograph poking out of the side pocket where she had shoved it earlier and forgotten to push it back in. The corner of it was getting wet. The face of the man in the picture was still just barely visible. His eyes stopped there. They stayed longer than they should have. When he looked back up, something had changed in his face. Nora did not know what. She did not have the experience to recognize it, but she could feel it, the way you can feel air pressure change before a storm. "What's your name, Miss Nora?" "Nora what?" She hesitated. She did not know why, except that giving a stranger her full name behind a closed gas station in a rainstorm was the kind of thing women on the news warned each other about. But she was so tired, and the rain was so cold, and he had not made one move closer. Calloway, Eleanor Calloway. He did not say anything to that. He just looked at her for another long moment, and then he nodded once, slow, like a man confirming something he had already known for a long time. "Well, Miss Calloway, my name is Otis Brennan. This is my station. That there is my motorhome, and $9 will do." He held out his hand. She gave him the money, every last bit of it. The bills were wet, the coins cold. He did not count them. He folded the bills around the coins and put the whole little wet wad of her life into the front pocket of his canvas jacket. Then he reached into his other pocket, came out with a set of keys, 2 keys on an old steel ring, one big and silver, the other small and brass. The brass one with a little notch missing from the head, like it had been used in something heavier than a lock for a long time. He held the keys in his palm, did not give them to her yet. "Miss Calloway." "Yes, sir. There is something I have to tell you about this motorhome before I hand you these keys." She waited. The rain kept falling. "Inside this motorhome," Otis said, "there is a door." She blinked. At the back end of the hallway, past the bunk, metal door, painted gray, locked. "What's behind it?" "That's the thing, miss." He looked at the RV. He looked at the rain. He looked at the photograph, still poking out of her backpack. And then he looked back at her, and his voice was very quiet. "I don't know." "You don't know." "No, miss. You own this RV, and you don't know what's behind a door inside of it." "That's right." "Why?" He worked his jaw, like a man about to say something he had not said out loud in a very long time, and was not sure how the words would come out. "Because it was never my door to open." She stared at him. "It was never my door to ask about, and it sure as hell ain't gonna be my door to open now. But it might be yours. And if it is, that's a thing for you to decide, not me." "Why are you selling it now?" He held the keys out. "Because tonight, miss, the right person finally walked into my lot." She looked at the keys. She looked at his face. She looked at the cardboard sign. She looked at the rain. She reached out and took the keys. They were warm from his pocket. They felt heavier than 2 keys should feel. Otis tipped the brim of his cap to her. Water ran off it in a small stream. "You take care of yourself in there, Miss Calloway. There's a propane tank. It's full. The battery's weak, but it'll run the lights for a few hours. There's a tank of water under the sink. Don't drink it. Use the bottles in the cabinet over the stove. I put fresh ones in there last week." She stared at him. "You put fresh water in there last week?" "Yes, miss." "Why?" He did not answer that. He just touched the brim of his cap again, and then he turned and walked back toward the lit-up office. Slow, the way old men walk in the rain. Nora stood in the lot with the keys in her hand and watched him go. At the door of the office he paused. He looked back, his face just a smudge of pale under the brim of his cap. He did not wave, he did not smile, he just looked. Then he opened the door and went inside. The bell above the door tinkled once, small and dry in the wet night. The door closed behind him. Nora stood alone in the lot, a motorhome, a set of keys, and nothing else in the world. She turned around. She looked at the RV. The RV looked back at her. She walked to the door, fit the silver key into the lock. It turned smooth, like it had been oiled recently. The handle gave with a soft mechanical click. The door swung open. She climbed in. The first thing that hit her was the smell. Old fabric, dust, the faint sweet ghost of pine air freshener that had given up its perfume a decade ago. And underneath all of it, a smell she could only describe as the smell of something waiting. But it was dry inside. That was the second thing. It was dry, and it was not as cold as outside. And the wind didn't reach her here, and the rain hit the metal roof above her head with a steady drumming sound that was no longer her enemy. She closed the door behind her. She locked it. The lock made a satisfying, solid sound. For the first time in 4 hours, Eleanor Calloway was inside a place where no one was going to tell her to leave. She stood in the entryway, let her eyes adjust. The cabin was small, a driver's seat and a passenger seat up front, both cracked vinyl, a little dinette with a folding table, 2 bench seats covered in faded plaid, a kitchenette with a 2-burner stove, a small sink, a half-broken cabinet, a tiny fridge that wasn't running, a doorway to a closet-sized bathroom. Past that, a hallway, maybe 6 feet long, and at the end of the hallway, a door, metal, painted gray, locked. Just like Otis had said, she did not go to it, not yet. She set her backpack down on the dinette, peeled her wet hoodie off and hung it over the back of the driver's seat to drip. She found a hand towel in a drawer that was clean enough and dried her hair with it. She drank from one of the water bottles in the cabinet over the stove the way Otis had told her to. The water was cold and clean and tasted like nothing at all, and it was the best thing she had drunk in years. She sat down on the bench seat. She pulled the photograph out of the pocket of her backpack. Her father's face looked up at her, a little wet around the edges. "Hey, Dad." The rain kept drumming on the roof. "I bought a motorhome." She laughed, a real laugh this time, small and damp and a little hysterical, but real. "I bought a motorhome for $9 from a man who said there's a locked door in it, and he doesn't know what's behind it. And the worst part is, I'm going to open the door." She wiped her face. She wasn't sure if it was rain or something else. "You used to tell me I never met a door I didn't want to open. You used to tell me that was going to get me in trouble one day." She looked down the hallway, toward the gray metal door. She did not get up. Not tonight. Tonight, she was tired in a way that went past her bones and into the soft middle of her, where her father used to live. The door would still be there tomorrow. She lay down on the bench seat and pulled her dry hoodie out of the backpack and balled it up under her head as a pillow. The plaid upholstery was scratchy against her cheek. The blanket she found folded in the overhead compartment smelled like cedar. She pulled it over herself. It was warm. For a long time she lay in the dark, listening to the rain and the small creaks of the RV settling around her like an old animal getting comfortable for the night. Then somewhere around midnight, she fell asleep. She dreamed of her father. She did not remember the dream when she woke up, but she remembered in her bones that he had been trying to tell her something, Morning came gray and slow. The rain had stopped sometime in the early hours. The world outside the RV smelled like wet asphalt and wet pine and the cold metal of a new day. Nora sat up, rubbed her eyes, remembered in pieces where she was. Motorhome. Otis. $9. The door. Right. She sat up, looked down the hallway. The door was still there. Gray, metal, locked, waiting. It could keep waiting. First, she needed to eat. First, she needed a job. First, she needed to learn how to be a person who lived in a motorhome behind a gas station in Ironbridge, Vermont. The door was a problem for the version of her that had eaten breakfast. She splashed water on her face from the bottle, pulled her hoodie back on. It was still damp, but no longer soaked. She put the photograph in the inside pocket of her hoodie where it could dry. She left the backpack on the dinette, took only the keys and the quarters she had missed in her pocket the night before. She stepped out of the RV and locked the door behind her. The gas station was open, the lot empty of cars. The flickering bulb under the overhang had been replaced sometime in the night with a new one. Otis was sitting on a folding metal chair just inside the open service bay, drinking coffee from a thermos cup, watching the road. He looked up when she walked by. He did not smile, did not wave, just nodded once. The way you nod at a neighbor whose name you do not know, but whose face you have seen for years. She nodded back. She walked into town. Ironbridge was the kind of town that had been built for 1,000 more people than actually lived in it. The paper mill had closed in 2015, the textile plant 3 years after that. Now, there were storefronts with for lease signs in the windows on Main Street, and the men who used to work the mills sat on the bench in front of the hardware store and drank coffee out of paper cups and watched the cars go by. She walked into 3 places looking for work. The diner on Main was staffed. The hardware store did not need anyone. The auto parts place gave her a sad look and said maybe in November. The 4th place was a small mechanic shop on the south end of town. The man who ran it was about 60. Grease worked so deep into the lines of his hands, she did not think it was ever coming out. His name was Cal Hutton. He looked her up and down. You 18? No, sir. You trouble? No, sir. You ever swept a floor? Yes, sir. He pointed to the back lot, an acre of dead grass, old tires, bits of engine that nobody wanted anymore. You clean that up by the end of the day, I'll give you 20 cash, and I won't ask any more questions. She worked 5 hours. She dragged tires into a pile. She raked the dead grass into a corner. She hauled half a transmission across the lot and stacked it next to the dumpster. She got a splinter in her thumb. She got grease on her jeans. She got a blister on her left hand, the size of a quarter. She did not stop. At 3, Cal came out. He looked at the lot. He looked at her. He did not say much. He just pulled a 20 out of his wallet and handed it to her. Come back Saturday, if you want. She walked out of there with $20 and felt like a millionaire. The diner on Main Street was called the Robin's Nest. It had been there for 40 years. The sign out front was tin, with one wing replaced after a windstorm in 1998. The front window said home cooking in white paint that had been retouched at least once a decade. Nora pushed the door open. A small bell tinkled overhead. The smell hit her first. Coffee, bacon, apple pie, the yeasty warm smell of bread rising somewhere in the back. Things she had not smelled in days. The woman behind the counter looked up. She was somewhere in her early 60s. Round face, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, hair pulled back in a gray bun, blue apron over a plaid shirt. Her hands were dusty with flour. She had the kind of face that made Nora's eyes sting before she even opened her mouth. The woman took in the wet sneakers, the grease-stained jeans, the blister on her hand, the hollow look around her eyes. She said, "Sit down, honey." Nora sat at the counter. The woman set a glass of water in front of her, then a cup of coffee with 2 creams already poured in. like she had known Nora was coming. Then a plate, pancakes, 3 of them, bacon, eggs, a biscuit on the side with butter melting into it. The whole plate steamed. Nora stared at it. "I have $20. The woman waved her hand, like Nora had said something foolish. "Eat first. We'll figure the rest out." "Ma'am, I can pay." "I know you can. Eat first." Nora ate. She ate slow at first, like the plate might be taken away. Then she ate faster. Then she stopped trying to be polite about it. She ate the way a girl eats who has not had a real meal in a week. The woman watched her without watching her. She wiped the counter. She refilled coffee for the trucker at the end. She rang up a pie box for an old man on his way out. She moved around her diner like a woman who had spent her whole life inside it and could do every job blindfolded. When Nora was done, the woman came back. She set down a slice of apple pie, a small slice, not full price. "Compliments of the house." Nora looked up. "Why are you being nice to me?" The woman leaned on the counter. Her name tag said, "Hazel." "Because you walked in here looking like the world had thrown you out. And I have a rule in my diner, sweetheart. The world doesn't get to throw a person out twice." Nora did not have anything to say to that. Hazel reached over, touched Nora's wrist, just for a second, just the back of 2 fingers against the knob of her wrist bone, like she was checking that Nora was real. "You staying somewhere safe, honey? I have a place. Is it warm? It's dry. Is it yours?" "It is now." Hazel nodded, slow, like that was a better answer than she had expected. "Come back tomorrow morning. I open at 5. You come in at 7. I'll feed you breakfast. And if you want to wash dishes for me on weekends, I pay $12 an hour, cash." Nora's throat closed up. "Yes, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am. Call me Hazel." "Yes, Hazel." Hazel smiled, a tired smile, the smile of a woman who had been giving second chances out of her diner for 40 years and had not yet run out. Nora paid for her food. Hazel charged her $4 for the whole plate. They both knew that was not what it was worth. Neither of them said anything about it. But as Nora was getting up to leave, she caught Hazel looking at her in a way that did not match anything else in the room. Not the way you look at a customer leaving, the way you look at somebody you have been waiting to see for a long time. Hazel turned away the moment Nora caught her looking. She wiped a coffee ring off the counter that was not there. "Take this with you, honey." She pushed a paper bag across. "Just a sandwich for the road, in case you skip lunch." Nora took the bag. The bell tinkled. The door closed behind her. Outside on the sidewalk, she stopped, stood there, looked at the bag. Then she looked back at the window. Hazel was still wiping the counter, not looking up, but under the apron her other hand had come up to her mouth, and it was shaking. Nora did not see that. She had already turned to walk back through town. She walked back, past the closed storefronts, past the old men on the bench in front of the hardware store, past the gas station where Otis was now standing at the pumps, filling up a logging truck. He nodded at her. She nodded back. She climbed up into her motorhome and locked the door behind her. She set the $16 on the dinette. She unwrapped the loaf of bread Hazel had quietly slipped into her bag. She found a peanut butter jar at the back of one of the cabinets, half full, dated within the year. She ate 2 slices of bread with peanut butter and drank a bottle of water and felt like she had eaten a king's feast. Then she started cleaning. She did not really plan to. She just started. She wiped down the dinette. She emptied the cabinets one by one and shook them out and wiped them down and put things back in. She found a stack of old newspapers in the closet by the door. She found a screwdriver. She found a flashlight that worked when she shook it. She found a small first aid kit that was older than she was, but still sealed. And then in the back of the cabinet over the stove, behind a box of crackers, so old they were a fossil, she found something else, a metal box. Small, about the size of a paperback book, gray, like the door at the back of the hallway, not rusted, just dusty. It had been pushed all the way back into the corner of the cabinet behind everything else, and it had been there a long time. Nora pulled it out. It was not locked, but it was stuck. The lid had been pressed down so hard it had bonded over time with the rim. She worked at it with the screwdriver. It took her 3 minutes. When the lid finally came loose, it popped open with a small dry crack, like a knuckle. Inside the box was a stack of papers, folded, tied together with a piece of old twine. Neat, deliberate, the way a man stacks papers when he wants them to be found by someone who will know what they mean. Nora sat down on the bench seat, untied the twine. The papers were old. Some were photocopies, some were handwritten notes, some had letterheads at the top from places she did not recognize. Most of them had dates. The dates spanned 6 or 7 years, ending in late 2017. She started flipping through them. She did not understand most of what she was reading. Technical drawings, pages of numbers, references to projects with names she had never heard, memos addressed to people she did not know, but she did not need to understand most of it, because on the 3rd page, near the top, in a small, neat row of typed information at the top of what looked like an employee record, was a name. Garrett Calloway. Nora froze. The name sat on the page and stared up at her like a thing that had been waiting 8 years to be looked at. She blinked. She looked again. She read it twice, 3 times, 4 times. Garrett Calloway. Her father's name. Her hands started to shake. She flipped the page. The next page had the same name on it, and the page after that, and the page after that. Memo after memo, report after report, form after form, all of them with his name, some of them with his signature, a signature she would have known anywhere because she had spent the years after his death tracing it on the back of receipts and the corners of homework. She stopped on a page near the middle of the stack. It was a printed personnel summary with a small black and white photograph in the corner. The photograph was her father, younger than she remembered him, but unmistakably him. Underneath the photograph was a title, Lead Systems Engineer, and under that in smaller letters, Halcyon Defense Industries, Restricted Access Division. Nora set the page down. Her hands had gone very cold. Her father had been a mechanic. That was what she had grown up believing. That was what her mother had always said. That was what was written on the small obituary in the local paper. Garrett Calloway, age 38, mechanic, survived by his wife Adelaide and his daughter Eleanor, loved hunting, loved his family, a mechanic. She looked at the page again. She looked at his face. She looked at the title under his face, Lead Systems Engineer, Restricted Access Division. Her mother had lied. For 8 years, her mother had lied. She sat very still at the dinette. Outside, the afternoon was dimming toward evening. The gas station lights had come on. Somewhere down the road, a logging truck was downshifting on the grade. Ordinary sounds, the sounds of an ordinary town on an ordinary day. But inside the motorhome, nothing was ordinary anymore. She stood. She walked down the hallway toward the gray metal door at the back. She did not try to open it. She just stood in front of it and put her hand flat against it. The metal was cold. The metal was patient. The metal was waiting. "Dad," she said it quietly. "What did you do?" The door did not answer her. She went back to the dinette, gathered the papers, tied them back in the twine, put them in the bottom of her backpack, under the spare shirt, under the paperback book. Then she pulled her phone out, plugged it into the small 12-volt outlet by the driver's seat. The battery icon glowed weakly. The phone was alive again, just enough to make one call. She dialed her home number. It rang 4 times. A man's voice answered. Not her mother, Vernon Hale. Eleanor! Her stepfather did not sound surprised, did not sound angry, sounded the way he always sounded. Calm, cold, in control. "I want to talk to my mother, Vernon." "Your mother is not available." "Put her on the phone." "She's resting. She's been very upset since you left." "Put her on the phone, Vernon." A long pause. When he spoke again, his voice had gone quieter, lower. the way a voice goes when a man is moving into a part of the house where he doesn't want anyone else to hear him. Eleanor, listen to me carefully. She listened. I do not know where you are. I do not care where you are. You wanted to leave. You left. That is a closed matter. Put my mother on the phone. You will not call this house again. Vernon, you will not come back to this house. You will not speak to your mother. You will not write to her. You will not contact her in any way. She is my mother, and she is my wife. Her hand was shaking on the phone. If she wants to see me, she'll see me. She will not. That's not your decision. His voice dropped another half step. I am only going to say this one time. She froze. Whatever you found, wherever you are, whatever you think you're going to do about it, stop now, before something happens that no one can fix. What did you say? You heard me. What do you mean, whatever I found? Good night, Eleanor. Vernon, what? If I see your face in this town again, if I hear your voice in my house again, if I find out you have gone to anyone, the police, the press, anyone at all, your mother is going to have an accident, Eleanor, the kind of accident that runs in your family. The line went dead. Nora stared at the phone in her hand. Her father's death, her father's accident, the kind of accident that ran in her family. She set the phone down on the dinette very carefully, like it was a thing that might explode. The lights of the gas station shone in through the cracked window. Somewhere out on the road, a car went by, its tires hissing on the wet pavement. Nora sat alone in the motor home she had bought for $9. She looked down the hallway, toward the gray metal door at the back. The door was still locked, but it would not be for long. Sleep did not come easily. She lay on the dinette bench with the blanket pulled to her chin, listening to the wind, to the trees, to the small creaks of the RV settling. She must have slept, because she woke up, sharp, to a sound that was not the RV settling. Footsteps, on gravel, outside, slow, deliberate, moving around the RV. She did not move, she did not breathe. The footsteps stopped, right outside the door. Quiet, quiet, quiet. A long, long silence, the kind of silence you hold like a held breath. Then the footsteps moved again, around the side, toward the back. She counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. A hand on the metal. She heard it, not loud, just the soft sound of a palm laid flat against the back of the RV. Testing, checking. The locked back door, the gray one. Whoever was outside knew about the locked back door. Nora's heart did something it had never done before. It went somewhere else for a second, came back, sat in her chest like a wet sandbag. The footsteps moved again, back around the RV, away, toward the lot, toward the road, and then, after 2 minutes gone, she lay there in the dark for a long time. She did not sleep again. When morning came, the sky was a flat gray. The gravel outside the RV was wet from a light drizzle that had passed in the early hours. She got up, pulled her hoodie on, stepped out into the chilly morning. She looked at the ground. There were footprints, 2 sets actually, one fresh going around the RV, stopping at the back, coming back around, the other older from the night before, going the same path. Someone had been here before, more than once. She knelt down. The fresh prints were a man's, size 11 or 12, heavy boots, the tread fresh enough that she could see the brand letters in the mud. She straightened up. Otis was watching her from the open service bay. He had a thermos cup in one hand, a rag in the other. She walked across the lot. She did not say anything. He did not say anything. For a moment, then he said very quietly, "Wasn't the wind last night, was it, miss?" She shook her head. "No, sir." He took a sip of his coffee, set the cup down on the workbench, pulled up the sleeve of his canvas jacket, just enough to show his left wrist. On the wrist was a watch, old, worn, the leather band cracked, the face yellowed with age. She had seen that watch before. It was the watch on her father's wrist in the photograph in her backpack. Her father's watch, 8 years missing from the world, strapped to the wrist of an old man at a gas station in a town she did not even know her father had visited. Her hands started to shake again. She looked up. Otis's face was very gentle, the kind of gentle a man saves for the worst day of someone else's life. Your father, miss. Garrett. We went to school together, engineering school, a long time ago. I dropped out senior year. He did not. He went on. We stayed friends until the day they said he had died. His voice was steady, but his eyes were not. And then, for 8 years after that, I have been waiting for you, Eleanor Calloway, for 8 years, to walk into my lot. And last night you did. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. You knew him. He was my brother, not by blood, but by every other measure that mattered. Then why did you not? Because he made me promise. Promise what? That when she came, meaning you, I would not tell you everything at once. I would let you find it. He said, Otis, if you tell her, she will always wonder. If she finds it, she will trust it. So I let you find the box, the papers, in the cabinet, above the stove, behind the crackers. You put them there. I put them there 8 years ago, the day he gave me the RV. He gave me a stack of papers. He gave me a metal box. He gave me a watch. He held up his wrists. The watch caught the gray morning light. He said, Otis, keep this for me until the day the locked door asked to be opened. Then give it to her. Tell her her father loved her. Tell her he was sorry he could not be there. Tell her. Otis's voice cracked. He waited a moment, cleared his throat, started again. Tell her she was the bravest thing in his life, and he had never met another door he did not want to open, either. Nora's face was wet. She did not know when she had started crying. She did not think she had been crying, but she was, the way a person cries who has not let herself cry in 8 years. Otis did not reach for her. He did not move closer. He just stood there in the gray morning, the watch on his wrist, the thermos cup behind him. There's a man, he said quietly, you need to go see today. His name is Marshall Penn. He lives at the end of Lake Aubrey Road, past the boat launch, 11 miles out of town. Who is he? He was the third person your father trusted in this world. Who were the first two? Otis tipped the brim of his cap. You're looking at one of them, miss. The other is a woman named Hazel Dorer. You met her yesterday. Nora's mouth opened, closed. She gave me pancakes. She did. Why? Because she has been waiting 8 years to feed you a hot breakfast, same as I have been waiting to sell you an RV. We have been waiting for you since you were 9 years old. Otis picked up the thermos cup again, took a long, slow sip. Eat breakfast first, miss. The road to Lake Aubrey is a long walk, and whatever's waiting at the end of it, you will want to face it on a full stomach. He turned, walked back into the service bay, and Nora stood in the gravel lot, with her father's watch still strapped to a stranger's wrist, and the rain starting up again. Soft, so soft you could not have heard it coming. She looked back at the RV, at the locked door inside, at the morning, and she thought very quietly, in a voice that surprised her, with how steady it was. All right, Dad, all right, I'm coming. The road to Lake Aubrey ran north out of town, 11 miles, 2-lane blacktop, pine on both sides. Nora walked. After 3 miles, a logging truck pulled over, and the driver leaned across and asked where she was going. Lake Aubrey, she said. He nodded once. He did not ask why a 17-year-old girl was walking 11 miles up a logging road on a Tuesday morning in October. That was the kind of town it was. He let her off at the boat launch. He did not ask for her name. She did not give it. She thanked him. He pulled away. She walked the last 2 miles up the gravel road. The trees thinned. The lake opened up on her left, pewter under a sky that could not decide whether to commit to rain or just hint at it all afternoon. A loon called somewhere out past the reeds. The sound went all the way through her. Marshall Penn's cabin sat on a slight rise above the water. It was small, cedar shingles gone gray with age, a wood stove pipe poking out of the roof smoke curling thin into the morning, a porch with 2 rocking chairs, a folded American flag draped over the back of one of them. A dog, the color of dirty snow, lay on the porch boards and lifted its head and watched her come up the drive. She stopped at the bottom of the steps. "I'm looking for Marshall Penn." The man in the second rocking chair lowered his coffee cup. He was somewhere in his late 60s, lean, tall, even sitting down, white hair cut short, a face that had been outside in weather for most of its life, half glasses perched on the end of his nose, a flannel shirt buttoned all the way up. He was reading a paperback book. He looked at her over the top of the half glasses. "You found him. My name is Eleanor Calloway." His eyes did not change, but something in his shoulders did, something small, like a man recognizing a sound he had been waiting a long time to hear. "Garrett's girl." "Yes, sir." "Otis send you." "Yes, sir." He set down the paperback. He set down the coffee. He looked at the dog. The dog put its head back down on its paws. "Come up on the porch, Miss Calloway, and mind the 3rd step. The board's loose. I've been meaning to fix it for 2 years." She came up. She skipped the 3rd step. She sat in the chair he gestured to. The flag rested against her shoulder. He did not move it. Neither did she. He looked at her for a long time without speaking. She let him. She had a feeling that men like Marshall Penn told you things in their own time and on their own terms, and trying to rush them was the surest way to get sent home empty-handed. Finally, he said, "How old are you, Miss Calloway?" 17. "You look like him." People used to say that. They were right. He picked up the coffee cup again. He drank from it. He set it down. "Your father came to me in the spring of 2017. He said he had a story. It was a big story, the kind of story a man like me lives his whole career hoping to be handed, and then prays he never is." She waited. "He gave me 3 months of his time, documents, interviews, names. I started writing it. I had it about half finished when August happened." "What happened in August?" "He stopped coming. He missed a meeting. Then he missed 2 more. And then his car turned up off the road, out by Brook Hollow, in early February, and they told us he was dead." "That was 6 months after he stopped coming to you." "Yes." "Where was he for those 6 months, Mr. Penn?" Marshall looked out at the lake. A loon called somewhere out past the reeds again. "Miss Calloway, I am going to tell you a thing now, and I want you to listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you is something I never put in print, and never will." She waited. There was no body in that car. The words landed in the porch air like a stone dropped into still water. "What?" "The accident on Brook Hollow, the fire, the pickup truck off the bend, the state troopers, the closed casket, the funeral. There was no body, not a whole one, not enough to identify by anything but a wallet and a watch." "A watch?" "Yes. He gave his watch to Otis." Marshall stopped. He looked at her. For a moment, the lake and the dog and the porch all went away. "He gave his watch to Otis." "Yes, sir. Otis is wearing it. I saw it this morning." Marshall set his coffee cup down on the porch board beside his chair. He took off his half glasses. He folded them. He put them in the pocket of his flannel shirt. He looked at her. "Then it's true," he said. "What's true?" "What I have believed for 8 years, and what I never said out loud, because I never had any evidence, just a feeling, and feelings are not what reporters print, Miss Calloway. What do you believe, Mr. Penn?" "That your father knew he was in danger. He knew it because of what he had brought to me. He knew that the people he was crossing did not let people walk away from what he was about to do. And so, my theory is that sometime in the late summer of 2017, your father stopped working with me, stopped working with everyone, and disappeared. He arranged his own disappearance. He left a truck and a wallet and a watch on a foggy bend of Brook Hollow, and he started a fire. and he walked away. So he is alive. That is not what I said, Miss Calloway. Listen to me. She listened. I said he disappeared in August. The truck was found in February. 6 months pass. 6 months in which a man like Arthur Crane, who does not lose, would have been looking for your father with everything he had. I think your father got away in August. I do not think he got away forever. I think they found him. I think they found him in late January or early February of 2018, and I think they ended it then, and I think they used the truck on Brook Hollow to close the story. The story was already half written, you see, by me, so they finished it for me. Nora stared at him. My father gave himself up to save us. That's a way of putting it. He gave himself up so that they would leave my mother and me alone. That is what I believe, Miss Calloway. Yes. The loon called again, closer this time. Nora looked out at the lake. The water was the color of pewter under the gray sky. Marshall did not press her. He looked out at the water and let her have her own time inside her head. When she could speak again, she said, Who was he, really? Your father? Yes. Garrett Calloway was the chief systems engineer on a project called Lattice at a company called Halcyon Defense Industries. Lattice? Yes. What was Lattice? It was sold to the United States Department of Defense as a guidance system. What was it, actually? It was a weapon, the kind that should not exist. But the worst thing is what your father learned, which is that the CEO of Halcyon, a man named Arthur Crane, who was also at one time your father's closest friend, had quietly arranged to sell the technology to foreign brokers in the early part of 2017. He was not selling it to enemies of this country. He was selling it to anyone who could pay. And he was lying to his own engineers, his own government, his own country. Your father found out. Your father came to me. We had 3 months. Then your father vanished, and then your father died, and then I sat on a half-finished story for 8 years because the man who would have been the heart of it was no longer here to confirm a single word. 8 years. Yes, you waited 8 years. I waited for you, Miss Calloway. Your father told me one thing before he stopped coming. He said, Marshall, if anything happens to me, wait for my girl. She will come. She is mine. She will come. Nora stood up. She did not mean to. Her legs just did it. The dog lifted her head and watched her. What did you say her name was? Whose name? The dog. Marshall looked at the dog. Her name is Pearl. Pearl. Yes. Sit down, Miss Calloway. She sat down. Mr. Penn, I have papers. What papers? His papers. I found them in a metal box in a motorhome. Memos, reports, a photograph of him, a signature, the name of the project, Lattice. Marshall's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Lattice. Yes, sir. Where are these papers now, Miss Calloway? Somewhere safe. Not in your hand, I hope. No, sir. Good. Do not move them. Do not carry them around. Do not show them to anyone. Do not take pictures of them with your telephone. Do not email them. Do not mention them on a phone line. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. Miss Calloway? Yes. This is much bigger than you, much bigger than I want it to be. The fact that you have those papers means that your father wanted you to have them. The fact that your father wanted you to have them means that he had a plan. The fact that he had a plan means there is something more out there, something he hid, something he wanted you to find. The papers are a map, Miss Calloway, not a destination. Where did you find them? In a motorhome. Whose motorhome? Mine. I bought it yesterday from a man at a gas station for $9. Marshall sat very still for a long moment, then slow. He turned and looked at her with an expression she could not read. Miss Calloway. Yes. What was the name of the man who sold you that motorhome? Otis Brennan. The silence on the porch got very deep. Marshall took the half-glasses out of his pocket, put them back on, took them off again, folded them, Put them away. Otis Brennan was your father's best friend. They went to engineering school together a long time ago. Brennan dropped out his senior year and came home and took over his father's gas station. Your father went on to Halcyon. They stayed close. Brennan used to come over for dinner. Your father used to take you fishing at Brennan's family cabin. When you were 5 years old, you probably do not remember any of it. You were too small. After your father died, Brennan stopped coming around. Your mother had remarried. Things were different. People drifted. That is what people said at the time. And what really happened. I do not know, Miss Calloway, but I will tell you this. The man who sold you a motorhome for $9 last night with a locked door in the back is not a stranger. He is the closest thing your father had to a brother, and I do not believe in coincidences. Nora stood up again. Her legs just did it. I have to go. Sit down, Miss Calloway. I have to talk to him. Sit down. She sat down. She did not know why she obeyed. She was not in the habit of obeying men. But Marshall Penn's voice had moved into a place that brooked no argument, and she sat. You will go back, but you will not run there. You will walk. You will think. You will not tell him you know who he is. Not directly. You will let him tell you. He already told me, Mr. Penn. Marshall stopped. What? He told me this morning. He pulled up his sleeve. He showed me my father's watch. He told me everything. He sent me here. Marshall let out a long, slow breath, like a man who had been holding it for years. All right then. All right. Then he has finished his half. Now you finish yours. What is my half? You open the door, Miss Calloway. The one at the back of the hallway. The one Otis has been keeping locked for 8 years. You open it, and you bring me what is inside. Today, before nightfall. Yes, sir. And Miss Calloway. Yes, sir. Be careful. You are 17 years old. You are 5'5". You are the only piece of evidence left in the world that Garrett Calloway ever existed and was telling the truth. Arthur Crane has been looking for that piece of evidence for 8 years, and he is going to find it. The question is whether you get it to me first. She did not answer. She did not need to. She stood up. Pearl stood up too, as if the dog also knew that the conversation was over. Marshall walked her to the steps. He put his hand on her shoulder for 1 second, the first physical contact he had made all morning. Then he took his hand away. Tell Otis I said hello. Tell Hazel too. She stopped on the second step. You know Hazel. Everyone who ever knew Garrett knew Hazel. He sat in her diner every Tuesday morning for years. Black coffee, eggs runny, a $5 tip on a $6 breakfast. He was as regular as the sunrise. She knew him as well as anyone outside his own house. Mr. Penn, yes. Did my father love my mother? Marshall thought about that for a moment. Miss Calloway, he loved your mother in a way that I have not seen many men love their wives, and he loved you in a way I have not seen many men love anything. Whatever he did in those last 6 months he did because he loved both of you too much to stay. She walked down the steps. She skipped the third one. The logging truck driver was already waiting in the gravel turnaround down by the boat launch, as if Marshall had called ahead. Maybe he had. She did not ask. He drove her back to town in silence. He let her off at the gas station. She nodded her thanks. He nodded back. He drove away. Otis was sitting in the folding chair just inside the open service bay, same as the morning before, watching the road. He looked up at her. He did not say anything. She did not say anything either, for a moment. Then she walked over to him. She stood in front of his chair. She bent down. She put her arms around his shoulders. She held him for half a second. He smelled like coffee and motor oil and rain. She pulled back. I'm going to open the door now. I'll be here, miss. I'll need a crowbar. In the toolbox by the lift. Black handle, 2.5 feet long. Take it. Bring it back when you're done. She walked over to the toolbox. She lifted the lid. The crowbar was inside. Black steel, 2.5 feet. Heavy, cold. She picked it up. She turned back to Otis. Why $9? He looked at her. Miss Calloway, how old were you when your father died? I was 9. Yes, miss. $9. He set the price 8 years ago. He told me, Otis, when she comes, the price is 9, not 8, not 10, 9, because she will be the same girl she was when I left her, on the inside, and that is the girl I need to walk through that door. Nora stood with the crowbar in her hand. She did not say anything else. She turned and walked across the lot toward the motorhome. The lights of the gas station fell yellow on the pavement behind her. Her shadow stretched long in front of her, all the way to the door of the RV. She climbed inside. She locked the door behind her. She walked down the small hallway. The gray metal door at the back was waiting for her, the way it had been waiting for 8 years. She raised the crowbar. The first swing barely left a mark. The metal swallowed the impact and gave her back only the sound of it, a flat, hard ring that bounced down the hallway and out through the walls of the motorhome and into the gray afternoon. Her hands stung from the shock. She tightened her grip. She breathed in. She breathed out. She thought of her father. She swung again. This time the door spoke back. A small dent. A flake of gray paint chipped away and floated to the floor. She kept swinging. She did not count the strikes. She did not pace herself. She drove the crowbar into the lock the way her father had once shown her how to drive a nail, with the whole weight of her body behind it, and after a while the muscles in her shoulders began to burn, and the muscles in her hands began to cramp, and the blister on her palm from Cal Hutton's lot tore open under the rubber grip of the bar and bled down her wrist. She did not stop. The lock cracked on the 17th swing. It was a small, dry crack, no louder than a stick breaking. The door shuddered. The mechanism inside gave way. Nora set the crowbar down on the floor of the hallway and pressed her palm flat against the door and pushed. The door swung inward. Cold air rushed out to meet her. Not stale air, not the kind that has been sealed in a room for years. Cold air, the kind that comes from a space that has been kept cold on purpose. Nora felt the chill move past her shoulders and down the hallway behind her, like a breath let out by something patient. She stepped inside. The space behind the door was small, maybe 4 feet wide, maybe 6 feet deep, a hidden compartment built into the rear of the motorhome. The walls were lined with foam insulation. The floor was steel plate. A small battery-powered light came on by itself when the door opened, a clean white circle of LED on a motion sensor. The whole compartment lit up at once. It was not a junk room. It was an office. Shelves lined 3 walls, narrow and shallow, the way shelves are built when a man has very little space and a very particular plan. 3 ring binders, the spines labeled in her father's neat handwriting, a row of small metal cases the size of paperback books, a stack of unmarked file folders, a row of audio cassette tapes in plastic sleeves, a laptop computer 10 years out of date, the cord neatly coiled beside it, a small fireproof box, locked. On the wall opposite the door at eye level was a single photograph in a plain black frame. It was her. It was her at age 9, in the denim jacket 2 sizes too big, standing in front of a Christmas tree, holding up a drawing she had made of a house, smiling the way children smile when they do not know yet that the world is going to take their fathers from them. Below the photograph, taped to the wall, was a folded sheet of paper. Her name was written on the outside, in his handwriting, Eleanor. She unfolded the paper. She read, Eleanor, if you have found these papers, then I am no longer here. I am sorry. I tried every road I could find to stay. By the time you read this, Marshall will have told you the rest. About Halcyon, about Lattice, about Arthur. He told the story better than I could have written it, so I am not going to tell it again. What I want to leave you with is not the story. It is the rest. I want you to know that Otis kept the key to this motorhome for 8 years because he loved me, and he loved you because you were my daughter. He believed There was a chance you would walk into his lot one day. The fact that you are reading this means he was right. I want you to know that Hazel knew everything I dared tell her. She kept it like a candle in a closed room. She will be kind to you. Let her be. I want you to know that I loved your mother the whole way. Every day I have been away from her has been a day spent missing her. If you are angry with her for whatever has happened since I left, please be a little less angry. She has been carrying the same weight I have been carrying, just on her side of the door. I want you to know that you were the bravest thing in my life. I have never met another door I did not want to open. You did not get that from your mother. You got it from me. On the bottom shelf is a locked box. Inside is a digital recorder. Take it to Marshall. He will know what to do with it. Finish what I started. Then live, Eleanor. Then live. Your father, Garrett. Nora read the letter 3 times. She read it until her eyes burned. She read it standing up. She read it with her free hand pressed flat against the wall to keep herself upright. She read it with the cold air of the compartment on her face, and the smell of old paper, and the faintest whisper of cedar in her nose, the smell she had not let herself remember in 8 years, the smell of her father's shoulders when she was small. When she finished the 3rd reading, she folded the letter back along its creases. She did not put it back on the wall. She put it inside the inside pocket of her hoodie, next to the photograph, against her heart. Then she knelt down on the steel plate floor. The fireproof box was on the bottom shelf. It was the size of a lunch pail. It had a small combination lock built into the lid. The combination was 3 digits. Nora did not need to guess. 9, her age when he left. 1, the number of children he had. 7, the year he had given Otis the motorhome to keep. She turned the dials. The lock clicked. She opened the box. Inside, on a bed of black foam cut to fit, was a digital audio recorder. Small, black, the screen dark. A USB cable coiled beside it. There was nothing else in the box. She held the power button. It came on. The screen lit pale blue. A single file appeared in the menu. The file was named with a date, February 4th, 2018, the day before her father's truck had been found on Brook Hollow, the day she now understood that he had died. Her thumb hovered over the play button. She did not press it. Not yet. She put the recorder back in the foam. She closed the box. She locked it. She set it on the dinette behind her in the motorhome's main cabin, where she could see it. There was one more thing she wanted to do before nightfall. She wanted to see Hazel. She walked back into town. The afternoon had clouded over. The wind had picked up off the river. The streetlights were already on early under the gray sky. She pushed open the door of the robin's nest. The bell tinkled. Hazel looked up from behind the counter. She saw Nora. She did not say a word. She just walked around the counter. She came across the diner. She took Nora's face in both of her flour-dusty hands. She looked at her for a long second, the way a person looks at a face she has been imagining for 8 years. Then she let go. "Sit down, sweetheart." Nora sat. The diner was empty. The lunch rush long over. The dinner rush an hour away. Hazel went behind the counter. She poured coffee. She did not ask. She brought back 2 cups. She sat on the stool across from Nora. "You went to see Otis this morning." "I did." "He told you." "He told me some of it." "How much?" "He gave me my father's watch. He told me Marshall would tell me the rest." "Marshall told you." "Marshall told me. And now you have come to me. And now I have come to you." Hazel nodded. For a long moment she did not speak. She wrapped both her hands around her coffee cup. She looked down into it. "Sweetheart, I am going to tell you a story about a girl, and it is not going to be a happy story, so I want you to brace yourself." Nora braced. "I had a daughter. Her name was May. She was the only child I ever had. She was 17 years old the summer she got sick, the summer of 2015. We thought it was a flu at first. It was not a flu. Nora set her coffee cup down. It was leukemia, the kind that moves fast. We had 8 months with her after the diagnosis. She died in May of 2016. She would have been 18 the next month. Nora put her hand on the table, just to feel the table. My husband Edward left 2 years after that. He could not stay in the house where May had lived. I understood. I did not blame him. He sends a Christmas card every year from Florida. We are still kind to each other. Hazel. Let me finish, sweetheart, because the part I have not told anyone is this. She took a slow breath. Your father had been coming to my diner every Tuesday morning for years before May got sick. Black coffee, eggs runny, a biscuit on the side, a $5 tip on a $6 breakfast. He was as regular as the sunrise. We were friends, sweetheart, the way you become friends with somebody you see at the same hour every week, year after year. He talked about you even when you were small, the grades you got, the books you brought home, the way you laughed. Hazel's eyes were wet. She did not wipe them. When May got sick, your father did not stop coming. He came every Tuesday. He asked about her. He asked what we needed. He did not make a fuss. He just kept showing up. The Tuesday May died, I was not at the diner. The next Tuesday, I was not either. But the third Tuesday, I opened the door at 5 in the morning, the way I always did, and your father was standing on the sidewalk waiting for me, with a thermos of his own coffee from home, because he did not know if I had remembered to make any. Nora was quiet. He sat at his booth. He drank his coffee. He did not order food. When I went over to refill his cup, he said, Hazel, I am so sorry. He said, I lost my mother when I was a boy. He said, I do not know what to say to you. I just wanted you to know that someone in this town saw you today, and someone is sorry. Hazel reached across and took Nora's hand. He kept coming after that every Tuesday, right up until the day he disappeared, and every Tuesday he asked me how I was, not how the diner was, not how the weather was, how I was, because he knew, he understood, he had lost. He recognized me. Nora was crying now, quietly, the slow kind of crying that does not interrupt anything. And then in the spring of 2017, your father came in on a Tuesday morning, and he ordered coffee, and he did not drink it. He just sat at the booth and stared out the window. I went over. I said, Garrett, you are scaring me. He said, Hazel, if anything happens to me, I need you to remember a name. What name? Arthur Crane. He said, Arthur Crane. And he said, the company is Halcyon Defense Industries. And he said, if my little girl ever walks into your diner, tell her that name, take care of her, feed her. I do not know when. It might be a year, it might be 10, but she will come to you. She is mine. She will come. Nora could not speak. I asked him why he was telling me, of all people, why a diner waitress. He said, Hazel, because nobody ever notices a woman behind a counter. He said it is the safest place in town. Hazel held Nora's hand tighter. Sweetheart, your father loved you so much. Every Tuesday morning, for as long as I knew him, he talked about you. He showed me pictures. He told me what you said about books and what you said about the moon and what kind of grade you got on a spelling test in 2nd grade. He talked about you the way men talk about a thing they believe is the best thing they ever made. Because you were the best thing he ever made. Nora pressed Hazel's hand. She could not speak. And after he died, after they said he died, I started something. I did not tell anyone. I knew where you went to school. I knew the day of your birthday. Your father had told me April 14th. So every April, since you were 10 years old, I sent a package to your school, to the front office, with your name on it. No return address. There was always a small gift, a book 1 year, a scarf 1 year, a music box when you turned 12, a wallet when you turned 15. I never put a card in. I never put a name, because I was not your mother. I was not anyone. But I had loved a man who loved his daughter, and I had lost a daughter who would have been close to your age, and I had this love left over. Sweetheart, I had so much love left over and nowhere to put it, so I put it in the mail. To you." Nora made a sound that was not a word. She had received those packages. For 7 years, she had carried them home from the front office of Iron Bridge High and laid them out on her bed and tried to figure out who they were from. She had thought at one point they were from her mother. Her mother had laughed and said no. She had thought another year that they were from her father. Some kind of strange game, but of course they could not be from her father, because her father was dead. Except he was not for the first 6 months, and after he was. Hazel had kept sending them. A woman she had not known existed, in a town she would not visit for another 7 years, sending birthday packages every April to a girl she had never met, because she had once loved a man who loved his daughter, because she had once lost a daughter herself, because love did not stop being love just because the people you loved went away. Nora put her head down on the counter, just for a second, just to put the weight of her head somewhere that was not her neck. Hazel did not move. She just kept holding Nora's hand. After a long time, Nora sat up. "Hazel, yes, sweetheart, I am going to do what he asked me to do. I know you are. I have a recording. I am taking it to Marshall in the morning." "Good. That is good." "And Hazel, yes, thank you for the music box." Hazel made a small sound, not a word. Nora paid for the coffee. Hazel did not charge her. Nora walked back to the motorhome in the dark. The streetlights came on as she walked under them, one after another, as if the town itself were welcoming her home. She got back to the lot at 7:30. She climbed up into her RV. She locked the door behind her. She set the fireproof box on the dinette. She lay down on the bench seat. She closed her eyes. She did not mean to fall asleep, but she had walked 22 miles that day. She had broken open a door that had been locked for 8 years. She had learned that her father was not dead the way she had been told he was. She had learned that he might be dead in a different way. She had read his letter. She had eaten apple pie at the counter of a diner with a woman who had loved her father secretly for 9 years. She fell asleep. She did not hear the first footstep. She woke up to glass. The cracked window over the dinette, patched with duct tape. The duct tape was now hanging. The window was now open. A hand was reaching in. Nora rolled off the bench seat. She hit the floor of the RV on her shoulder. It hurt. She did not make a sound. A man's body was now partly through the window. Black coat, black gloves, a small flashlight. The flashlight swept the dinette. It stopped on the fireproof box. The hand reached for it. Nora reached for the crowbar. The crowbar was still in the hallway, where she had set it down after breaking the door. She crawled. She did not stand. She crawled down the hallway. Quiet, the way her father had once shown her how to crawl, when she was 6 and he had taught her how to move through the woods without scaring the deer. She reached the crowbar. She picked it up. She turned around. The man was almost all the way through the window now. His face was a black ski mask. His eyes were a pale color she could not name in the bad light. He saw her. He froze for a half second. She did not freeze. She swung the crowbar. She did not aim for his head. She aimed for the bottle of Pine air freshener that had been sitting on the dinette ever since the original owner of the motorhome had left it there. The bottle her father had probably bought 20 years ago. The bottle she had not thrown out because it had felt like part of the RV. The bottle shattered. Pine air freshener exploded. All over the dinette, all over the cabinets, all over the man's chest. It went into his eyes. He made a sound that was not a word. Nora ran. She unlocked the front door of the RV. She kicked it open. She tumbled out into the gravel lot. She did not look back. She ran for the service bay. Otis was already standing in the doorway. He had heard the crash. He was holding a shotgun, an old one, 16 gauge maybe, single barrel, the kind of shotgun an old man keeps in the back of his service bay for raccoons and not much else. He saw her face. He saw the man climbing out of the RV behind her. He raised the shotgun. He fired one shot into the ground between Nora and the man. Gravel spat up in a circle. The man stopped. Otis worked the action. "Mister," he said quietly, "I have one more in this barrel. I have not had reason to fire it in 15 years, so I am not what you would call particular about where it lands, but I am old enough now that I would prefer not to clean it up, so I am going to ask you one time, get back in your car, drive away, and never come back to Ironbridge." The man looked at Otis. The man looked at Nora. The man looked at the gravel where the first shot had landed. He walked backward, slowly, toward a black sedan parked at the edge of the lot that Nora had not seen. He got in. He drove away. The taillights went out around the bend. Nora was shaking. Otis lowered the shotgun. He set the safety. He set it down against the wall of the service bay. "Come inside, miss." "Otis, come inside." She came inside. He poured her a cup of coffee from his thermos. It was lukewarm. He poured a cup for himself. He picked up the phone. He dialed a number. He waited. A voice answered. "Marshal Otis." "Yes. Tonight, within the hour." "Yes." "Send someone to your cabin." "No, you stay there. I will keep her here." "Yes, yes, I will." He hung up. "Marshal is sending someone over to his cabin. I am keeping you here tonight. We are going to lock down the gas station. We are going to wait until morning, and then we are going to drive together to Marshall's, and we are going to take that recording, and we are going to call the FBI. She nodded. She drank the lukewarm coffee. She did not let go of his hand. The phone rang. Otis picked it up. His face changed. "What?" He listened. "When?" He listened. "Pearl." He listened. "How bad?" He listened. He set the phone down on the workbench, very carefully. "Miss." "Yes." "They got to Marshall before our man did." "What?" "A man came up to the cabin 20 minutes ago. Pearl, the dog. Pearl went for him. He shot the dog. Pearl is dead. Marshall took a blow to the head with the butt of a pistol, but he is alive. The man left when he heard a car coming up the road. Marshall is on his way to the hospital. Our man got there as they were loading the ambulance." Nora stared at him. "The dog. The dog is dead, miss. Pearl is gone." She did not cry for the dog. She had not known the dog. She had known the dog for 2 hours, and then she had left the porch, and that had been all. But she cried for the porch, for the rocking chair, for the half glasses in the flannel shirt pocket, for the loon out on the lake, for all the things in the world that should have been allowed to stay quiet. "Otis?" "Yes, miss." "Crane is coming, isn't he?" Otis took a long, slow breath. "Yes, miss. Arthur Crane is coming. He knows you have it. He knows where you are, and he is coming." She set down the coffee cup. She wiped her face on the sleeve of her hoodie. She looked up at the old man across the workbench from her, the old man who had loved her father like a brother, the old man who had kept a motor home running for 8 years, the old man who had just fired one shot of buckshot into the gravel of his own lot at midnight to protect a girl he had been waiting for since she was 9. "All right," she said. "All right," he agreed. The wind moved through the open service bay. The metal sign of Brennan's service creaked once on its chain, and out in the dark somewhere east of Ironbridge, a black sedan with broken air freshener on the dashboard turned onto the state highway and pointed itself toward the city where Arthur Crane lived. He was on his way, and the only people standing between him and Eleanor Calloway were an old gas station owner, a diner waitress, a retired newspaperman with a head wound, and a 17-year-old girl with a digital recorder and a crowbar. That was the army her father had left her. That was going to have to be enough. Morning came thin and cold. Nora had not slept. She sat in the service bay on the folding metal chair beside Otis's, a blanket over her shoulders, the fireproof box on her lap, both hands on the box. Otis had not slept either. He sat in his chair watching the road, the shotgun on the workbench behind him, where it had not been put back in the cabinet yet. Hazel arrived at 5:30 in her own car, a 2009 Buick, the color of clay. She got out. She did not knock. She walked into the service bay carrying a paper bag and a thermos, 3 breakfast biscuits wrapped in wax paper, 2 with bacon, 1 without for Nora. She poured 3 cups. She did not say anything. They drank in silence. When Nora's cup was empty, Hazel said very quietly, "Sweetheart, there is one more thing you have to do this morning before any of the rest of it can happen." "What?" "You have to go home." Nora looked at her. "To Mercer Street." "Yes." "To my mother?" "Yes." Nora set the cup down on the workbench. "Hazel, she lied to me for 8 years. I know she did. She let Vernon throw me out. I know she did. Then why am I going?" Hazel reached across the workbench. She did not take Nora's hand this time. She just laid her fingers on the back of Nora's wrist. "Because, sweetheart, you do not know what she lied about, and you do not know why." Nora was quiet. "I have known Adelaide Calloway for 20 years. I knew her before your father died. I knew her after, and the woman who stood at that sink the night Vernon Hale threw you out of her house is not the woman I knew, and I do not believe she is the woman she pretends to be." Otis stood up. He picked up his keys. "I'll drive you, miss." He drove her into town. He did not say anything on the drive. She did not say anything either. Outside the small 2-story house on Mercer Street, he parked across the street and left the engine running. "I'll wait here, miss. Take whatever time you need." She got out of the truck. She walked up the path she had walked away from 48 hours ago. The grass was still wet. A pumpkin sat on the top step where it had not been 48 hours ago. She knocked. She had not knocked at her own front door in 17 years. The door opened. Adelaide stood there, hair down, a robe over her pajamas, no makeup. She looked 10 years older than she had looked at the sink 2 nights ago, and 10 years younger at the same time. Mother and daughter looked at each other for 1 second, maybe 2. Then Adelaide stepped forward and put her arms around her daughter and did not let go. Nora did not move. She did not put her arms around her mother back, but she did not pull away either. That was enough. For now, after a long minute, Adelaide stepped back, wiped her eyes with the cuff of her robe, looked over Nora's shoulder. "Is that Otis Brennan in that truck?" "Yes." Adelaide nodded once, as if confirming something to herself. "Come in, sweetheart." "Where is Vernon?" "He left for Boston yesterday morning. A meeting that came up suddenly. He won't be back until tomorrow night." "How convenient." "It was not convenient, Eleanor. It was arranged." "By who?" "By me." Nora stopped in the doorway. Adelaide stepped past her, walked into the kitchen, put the kettle on. She did not turn around. "Sit down, Eleanor." Nora sat at the kitchen table, in the same chair she had sat in for breakfast for 16 years. The wood was warm under her hand. The placemat was the same one her mother had embroidered when Nora was 12. The kettle started to whistle. Adelaide poured 2 cups. She sat down across from her daughter. She wrapped her hands around her cup. "I have something to tell you, Eleanor. I do not know how to start. So I am going to start with the worst part, and we will work our way back." Nora waited. "I knew." "Knew what?" "All of it. Mom, Eleanor, I knew. I have known. For almost 8 years. The kitchen got very quiet. The refrigerator hummed. A clock ticked. "Knew what specifically, Mom?" "That your father did not die in that wreck on Brook Hollow. That he disappeared on purpose. That Vernon Hale was not a coincidence. That this house has been watched by Halcyon Defense Industries for almost a decade. That my own marriage was a surveillance operation. That when I look at the man who has been my husband for 8 years, I am looking at a piece of furniture that was placed in this room by Arthur Crane." Nora's hands started to shake. She put them flat on the table. "You knew." "I knew. You knew Vernon was a plant. I knew it within 2 months of meeting him. Eleanor, he was too perfect. He was too gentle. He was too patient. He showed up at the grocery store one Thursday afternoon and offered to carry my bag to my car. And I looked at him, and I knew. I do not know how I knew, but I knew, the way a woman knows a thing, with no evidence at all. Then why did you marry him? Adelaide closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she looked very tired, and very old, and very sure. Because if I had refused him, he would have been replaced by someone I did not recognize, someone better at the job, and I would never have known, and I would never have been able to do what I have been doing for the last 8 years, which is this. Adelaide stood up. She walked to the bedroom. She came back carrying a pillow. She set the pillow on the table. She unzipped the case along one seam, reached inside, pulled out a USB drive. It was small, black, the kind that costs $8 at any pharmacy. She set it on the table between them. On this drive are 8 years of his banking records, his phone records, his credit card statements, the IP addresses he uses when he thinks I am asleep, the names of the men he has met for coffee in Boston who do not work where he says they work, the deposits from a shell company in the Cayman Islands, the dates, the amounts, all of it. Nora stared at the drive. How did you get this? I copied them, 2 or 3 pages at a time, over 8 years, every time he left the house. I would go into his office, photograph what was on his desk, or copy a file off his laptop. I learned things, Eleanor, that I did not know I could learn. Spreadsheets, encryption, how to clear browser history without leaving metadata. I bought a book at the library. I read it at night when he was at his meetings. I taught myself. Mom, I am not the woman you thought I was, Eleanor. I am sorry. The only way to keep you safe was to make Vernon believe he had won, that I was a sad woman passing the days, that I had given up, that I had nothing to do but stand at a sink and let the dishes not move. Nora was crying again, quietly. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Because, Eleanor, if you had known, you would have looked at him differently. He would have seen it in your face. He would have moved on us, and I could not allow that to happen. So I let you hate him alone, and I let you hate me a little too, because the cost of you knowing the truth was higher than the cost of you not. You let him throw me out. I did. You stood at the sink and you let him throw me out. I did. Why? Adelaide closed her eyes again. Because I knew where you were going to go. What? Otis had told me 3 years ago that the motorhome was ready. Hazel had told me 5 years ago that her diner was always open. Marshall had sent me a letter the year you turned 15 and told me that whatever happened, he was prepared. I knew that if Vernon ever put you out of this house, you were going to walk 3 miles down Mercer Street to Brennan's service. And from there, the people who loved your father would take it from there. You arranged it. I did not arrange it. I let it happen. Vernon had been escalating for 2 years. The day he chose was the day he chose. I had no control over that. But I knew. The minute I knew the night was coming, I knew you would land where your father had planned for you to land. Adelaide hesitated. Eleanor, there is one more thing. What? Vernon has been sleeping badly the last 6 weeks. He gets up at 3 in the morning. He goes to the kitchen. He looks out the window at the street. He thinks I am asleep. I am never asleep when he is in the house. I do not sleep until he sleeps. He is afraid of something. I think he is afraid of Arthur Crane. I think he has been afraid for a long time. I think whatever is about to break in this house was already breaking before you walked out of it. Nora picked up the USB drive. She held it in her palm. It was very light. Mom, yes, sweetheart, I have a recording. Of what? Of him, Crane. Dad made it the day before the wreck. Adelaide closed her eyes one more time. Then it is going to be over. It is going to be over. Eleanor, yes, Mom. Do you forgive me? Nora looked at her mother across the kitchen table, the same table they had sat at for 16 years, the placemat her mother had embroidered when she was 12, the cup she had drunk hot chocolate out of when she was small enough to need both hands to hold it. Mom, I am going to have to think about it for a long time, maybe a very long time. All right, but I am going to think about it, not refuse it. All right, will you come with me? To Brennan's, to Otis and Hazel. Adelaide stood up. Eleanor, I have been waiting 8 years for you to ask me that question. Outside, Otis was leaning against the side of his truck. When he saw Adelaide come out the front door behind Nora, he straightened up. Adelaide, Otis, been a while, 8 years and a few months. I'm sorry I didn't come around. I'm sorry I didn't make you welcome if you had. He nodded once. He opened the passenger door of the truck. Come on then, let's go figure out how to end this. When they pulled in at the gas station, Hazel was standing in the open service bay. She had been waiting. She saw Adelaide get out of the truck, and for the first time in 9 years, the two women looked at each other, and Hazel held out her arms, and Adelaide walked into them, and neither of them said anything for a very long time. When they finally stepped apart, Adelaide looked at Hazel. You sent her the music box. I sent her the music box. I always wondered. I always hoped you would. Inside the service bay, Otis poured a fresh thermos of coffee. Nora opened the fireproof box. She set the digital recorder on the workbench. They looked at it for a long moment, the four of them. Then Otis picked up the phone. Marshall, Otis, how's the head? Hurts like the dickens. They are sending me home this afternoon. Concussion, stitches, I'll live. Are they coming? They came at 6 this morning. 2 agents, Special Agent Linnea Halverson and her partner. They are on their way to your gas station now. Should be there in 40 minutes. Good. Otis, tell me you have the girl. I have the girl. I have the girl's mother. I have Hazel. I have the recorder. We are all in one place. Then I have done my job. The rest is up to her. Special Agent Linnea Halverson arrived at the gas station at 7:42 in the morning. She was a woman in her early 60s, gray hair cut short, a navy windbreaker with no logo, the kind of plain clothes that read as nothing in particular until you notice how well they fit, and how the woman wearing them held herself. She took one look at the digital recorder, then she looked at Nora. Miss Calloway, I have been waiting for this case for 14 years. A colleague of mine came up with the first lead on Halcyon Defense in 2011. He retired without seeing it close. I told myself I was not going to retire until this case closed. I am 62 years old. I have 1 year left before mandatory retirement, and you have just walked into my morning with a recording. So, whatever you need from me today, I will provide. Whatever risk you are willing to take, I will match. Yes, ma'am. Now tell me what you want to do. So Nora told her. Halverson listened. She did not interrupt. When Nora finished, she said, Good, that'll work. She turned to Hazel. Mrs. DeWare, are you willing to use your diner as the meeting point? I am. There will be agents inside posing as customers. We will need you to call him by 11. We will need him there by 12:30. I can do that. Halverson turned to Otis. Mr. Brennan, I am going to ask you to remain at the gas station with Mrs. Calloway. If Vernon Hale has been reporting to Crane all these years, and Crane sees you sitting in the diner waiting for him, he will know it is a trap. Understood. And Miss Calloway. Yes, ma'am. You are going to be wearing a wire. You are going to be sitting in a booth across from a man who has spent the last 8 years trying to find what you are about to hand him. Are you willing? Yes, ma'am. Why? Nora thought about that. She looked at the recorder on the workbench. She looked at her mother. She looked at Otis, then Hazel, then back at Halverson. Because Special Agent Halverson, My father has been waiting for this moment for 8 years, and I am his daughter. And he taught me you do not get to ask a thing of the world if you are not willing to be the one who does it. Halverson looked at her for a long second. All right. Hazel called Arthur Crane's office at 10:58. She used the landline behind the counter, the line that had been her grandfather's, the line that had not been changed in 50 years. She spoke for 90 seconds. She told Crane a girl had walked into her diner 2 days ago with a story and a digital recorder. She told him the girl was Garrett Calloway's daughter. She told him the girl was scared. She told him she had spent 40 years feeding people in her diner and had no interest in being part of whatever this was. But the girl had said his name, and she thought maybe, just maybe, if a man like him came down and explained the situation, the girl might be persuaded to walk away. She told him to come alone. She told him noon. Then she hung up, before he had a chance to say a single word. That was the play. Don't give him the chance to refuse. Don't give him the chance to negotiate. Just hang up and let him drive. At 11:30, Nora put on the wire, a small device about the size of a quarter. They taped it to the inside of her bra strap, above her sternum. She put her hoodie back on. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror at the back of the diner. She did not recognize herself. She did not say anything about that. There was no time. At 11:45, the agents arrived in plain clothes, a man with a newspaper at the counter, a woman with a baby in a stroller in the booth by the window, a man in coveralls who walked in carrying a clipboard and asked Hazel if she had any issues with the freezer. Hazel said no, but please come look anyway. He went to the back. He stayed there. At 11:50, Nora sat down in the corner booth, her father's booth. She set the digital recorder on the table in front of her. She did not order anything. She waited. At 12:04, the bell over the door tinkled. Arthur Crane walked in. He was tall, lean, dark hair cut short, a long charcoal overcoat, a scar above his left eyebrow that she had seen in a photograph in her father's hidden compartment. He was alone. He carried no briefcase, no weapon, no phone in his hand. He was carrying one thing, a white envelope, long, crisp, heavy. He looked around the diner. He took in the trucker at the counter, the woman with the stroller. He nodded politely at Hazel as she came out from behind the counter with a coffee pot. He sat down across from Nora. He did not introduce himself. He did not need to. She did not introduce herself either. Hazel poured a cup of coffee at his place, 2 creams already poured in. He glanced at her with the smallest flicker of surprise. Hazel did not meet his eye. She set the pot back on the warmer. She went behind the counter. Crane took one slow sip. He set the cup down. Miss Calloway. Mr. Crane, I am sorry to bother you on a Tuesday afternoon. I will not take much of your time. I have a meeting in Boston at 5. Then we'd better get to it. We had. He set the envelope on the table between them, did not push it toward her, just set it down. There is a check inside that envelope. The check is for $2 million. It is written to you. It will clear today if you take it to any bank in this state. The check comes with no conditions. There is no paperwork to sign. I am not asking you to give me anything. I am not asking you to confirm or deny anything. I am as your father's friend helping a young woman whose father is no longer here to help her. Nora looked at the envelope. She thought for a moment about what $2 million could do. She thought about a house, about college, about taking her mother out of Vernon Hale's house and putting her somewhere safe for the rest of her life. Then she thought about her father, in a black truck, February of 2018, with a man across from him, smiling the same small, sad smile. Mr. Crane? Yes. Why $9? He blinked. I'm sorry. The motorhome. My father set the price at $9 8 years ago because I was 9 when he left. Did you know that? He looked at her. He did not answer. He left me a letter. He says you sold the technology to 2 foreign buyers. He says you knew. He says you arranged for him to die. He named you Mr. Crane by name." The small smile on Arthur Crane's face did not change, but something else did, something behind his eyes. The temperature of the room dropped. "Miss Calloway." He also left a recording, his head tilted half an inch to the right, the way a hawk tilts its head when it has heard a small animal in the grass. A recording. Yes. Of what? Of you. He did not move. He did not breathe for a fraction of a second. He was a perfectly still object, and Nora saw with perfect clarity what he had been the night he had killed her father, the shape of him under the suit, the thing that lived in him under the smile. Then the smile came back. "Miss Calloway, you are a young woman who has had a very difficult few days. Whatever you think you have, I assure you, is either fabricated or out of context. I am offering you a chance to walk away from a story that is going to hurt you far more than it will hurt me. Please take the envelope, walk out of this diner, go and live your life. My father told me to live my life too, Mr. Crane. Then take the check. He told me what to do first." "And what was that?" Nora picked up the digital recorder. She slid it across the table. She set it down in front of him, beside the envelope. She did not let go of it. "To bring you down." The bell over the door tinkled. Crane did not turn his head, but Nora did. 3 people had walked into the robin's nest. Special Agent Halverson was in front. Behind her was a man in plain clothes with a federal badge on his belt. Behind him were 2 agents in dark blue jackets with 3 letters across the chest. Halverson stopped at the booth. She looked down at Arthur Crane. "Mr. Crane, my name is Special Agent Linnea Halverson, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have a warrant for your arrest. The charges include conspiracy to commit murder, illegal export of controlled defense technology, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. Please stand up and place your hands flat on the table." Crane did not move. He looked across the table at Nora. For just one moment, he was not the CEO of Halcyon Defense Industries. For just one moment, he was a 47-year-old man who had spent his whole life telling himself that he was clever enough to get away with the things he had done. For just one moment, he understood that he had been wrong. The girl he had been sitting across from had been the one who had brought him down. Then his face went smooth again. He stood up. He placed his hands flat on the table. The agents moved in. They cuffed him in the booth. They read him his rights in a low, quick monotone. They walked him out of the diner, past the trucker at the counter, past the woman with the stroller, past Hazel Doware, who watched from behind the counter with one hand still resting on the coffee pot. At the door he stopped. He turned his head. He looked back at Nora. He did not say anything. She did not say anything either. He turned away. They put him in the back of a black sedan at the curb. The car pulled away. The bell over the door tinkled once. The diner was quiet. Hazel put down the coffee pot. She walked around the counter. She slid in next to Nora. She put her arm around Nora's shoulders. She did not say a word. Nora put her head down on Hazel's shoulder. She did not cry. She had cried enough yesterday. She just put her head down and let Hazel hold her. Outside, the wind moved through the trees on Main Street. A few yellow leaves fell across the sidewalk. In the rest of Ironbridge, Tuesday lunch went on. The hardware store opened. The old men on the bench got fresh paper cups of coffee. The world did not know. The world would know by the evening news. But for 1 hour in the robin's nest, the world was quiet. Vernon Hale turned himself in at 9 the next morning. He drove from Boston without a lawyer. He parked at the federal field office in Burlington. He walked in. He told the receptionist who he was. He said he wanted to talk. He sat with federal investigators for 14 hours. He gave them names, dates, amounts, the shell company, the drop boxes, the names of 2 other engineers at Halcyon who had been bought, the retired Department of Defense official who had been taking payments. He did not ask for a deal. When the investigators asked him why he was cooperating, he said one thing: because Arthur Crane is going to die in prison. and I have decided that I do not want to die in prison with him. Adelaide had filed the divorce papers the morning after Crane's arrest. He signed them without contest. He walked out of her life the way he had walked into it, quietly, politely, without leaving footprints. By the end of the week, Halcyon Defense Industries had been raided by 3 federal agencies. 2 foreign brokers were arrested. A retired Department of Defense official was placed under indictment. The case made the national news on Thursday evening. Arthur Crane was held without bail. He died in federal custody on December 17th. Marshall Penn told Nora later it was a heart attack. She did not ask if he believed it. He did not say. He told her she did not need to ask any more questions. Some doors, he said, are open. Some doors are closed. Let this one close. She let it close. She sat with Marshall on the porch of his cabin 2 days later for an hour. Pearl's dog bed was still on the porch boards, empty. Marshall had not yet moved it. He had said he was not going to. Not for a while. They watched the lake. A loon called somewhere out past the reeds. The sound went all the way through her. It was less than a week later when the second truck came down the road. Nora was awake at 2:17 in the morning. She had not been sleeping much, not because of bad dreams, because of waiting. She did not know what for. She just knew, the way her mother had known things, that something was not yet finished. She made coffee. She sat at the dinette in her hoodie. At 3:41, headlights came down the road. They turned into the lot. Otis's Ford was leading, but there was a second vehicle following, an old pickup, cab the color of rust, a small camper shell over the bed, Canadian plates. Both vehicles parked. The headlights went off. Otis got out of the Ford. The driver of the pickup got out too. Nora stood up so fast she banged her knee on the dinette. She did not feel the bang. She did not feel anything. She was already moving toward the door of the RV. She turned the lock. She pushed the door open. She stepped out into the cold lot. The driver of the pickup stood under the overhang of the gas station in the yellow light. He had pulled the door of the truck shut behind him. He was not moving. He was waiting. She walked across the lot. She walked across the gravel that had been her front yard for 3 months now. She walked toward the man under the overhang. When she got within 3 feet of him, she stopped. She looked at him. He looked at her. His hair was bone white at the temples, white early, not from age, from whatever he had spent the last 8 years doing. There was a long scar across his right cheek, up near the bone, a scar that had healed clean, not a recent wound, an old one, from the first months. His eyes were the same eyes from the photograph in her hoodie pocket where she had carried that photograph for 8 years. Eleanor. The word came out of him like he had not said it in a long time. He had not. Dad. Yes, sweetheart. It's me. She did not run to him. She did not fall to her knees. She did not do any of the things people in movies do when a person comes back from the dead. She just walked the last 3 feet between them. She put her arms around her father, and she held him for a long time. He held her back. He smelled like coffee and pine and something cold from the road. He smelled like a person who had been alive for the 8 years he had been pretending to be dead. After a long time, she stepped back. She looked at him. You're real. I'm real, sweetheart. You've been alive. I have been alive every day, Eleanor. Where? A town in British Columbia, north of nowhere, 1,600 people. I worked on cars. My name was different. I had a small house. I had a garden. I had a dog. The dog died last spring. I have not gotten another one. 8 years. 8 years. Yes. Did you ever think about coming home? Every day, Eleanor. Then why didn't you? His face went still. Because if I had come home, Arthur Crane would have found me within a week, and he would have hurt your mother, and he would have hurt you, so I stayed gone, so you could be safe. That was not your choice to make. I know it wasn't. You should have told me. I know I should have. 8 years, Dad. I know. Every birthday, every Christmas, every spelling test. I know, sweetheart. He took a small step back. He took something out of his pocket, a folded piece of paper, worn at the corners. He held it out to her. She took it. She unfolded it. It was a Father's Day card, handmade, crayon, the kind a third grader makes in art class. It had a picture of a stick figure father with a stick figure daughter holding hands. It said in big purple letters, "I love you, Dad, from your favorite Eleanor." She remembered making it. She had been 8. She had given it to him for Father's Day, the summer before he disappeared. He had kept it for 8 years. He had carried it across an international border, into a town she would never visit. He had kept it in a drawer in a house that was not his real house. He had taken it out and looked at it on bad days. She gave it back to him. "You keep it, Dad. I want you to have it. I want you to have it. I'm going to make you another one." He started to cry then, quietly, old men's tears, the kind that does not ask for attention. He had not cried in 8 years either, apparently. She held his hand. Otis came up behind them, stood at a distance, did not interrupt. After a long moment, Garrett wiped his face on the back of his sleeve. "How is your mother?" "She is on her way." Headlights came down the road as Nora said it. A second car, Hazel's Buick. It pulled into the lot, parked next to the pickup. Adelaide got out of the passenger side. Hazel got out of the driver's side. She stayed by the car. She did not come closer. She put her hand to her mouth. Adelaide walked across the lot. She stopped in front of her husband. Garrett and Adelaide. They had been married 21 years. They had been apart for 8 of them. He had been dead for 8 of them. And now he was not. She did not say anything. He did not say anything. She stepped forward. She put one hand on his chest, right over his heart. She left it there. She closed her eyes. She did not open them for a long time. When she did, she said in a voice that was not quite steady, "I know you did, Addie. I felt it. The night they came to the door, they said he was gone, and I felt that he was not, and I have felt that he was not, for 8 years. I'm sorry I let you feel that alone. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that I knew." She put her arms around him then, the way she had put them around Nora the day before, and she held him, and she did not let go. Hazel stood by the Buick. She did not come closer, but she was smiling, the first real smile of her face in 9 years. Otis walked over to her. He stood next to her. He put one arm around her shoulders. He did not say anything. They watched the Calloway family from a distance, the way you watch something you have been carrying in your hands for a very long time, when you finally get to put it down. 6 months later, April, the motorhome was pulling out of Brennan's service at 10 in the morning. It had a new windshield, new tires. The cracked window over the dinette had been replaced. The duct tape was gone. Otis had spent the winter rebuilding the engine. He had not charged her for the labor. He had said it was his pleasure. He had said her father had taught him most of what he knew about engines anyway. So, in a way, it was Garrett's labor going into the rebuild, just delivered through Otis's hands. The gray metal door at the back was gone. The hidden compartment behind it was just a small, clean storage space now. Empty shelves. The papers had gone to the FBI months ago. The recorder, the cassette tapes, all of it. Nora sat behind the wheel. 18 now. Birthday was last week. Hazel had baked her a cake. Adelaide had given her her grandmother's necklace. Adelaide sat in the passenger seat. Garrett would follow behind, in the rusted pickup truck with the camper shell on the back. He had decided not to sell it. He said it was the truck that had brought him home. He was going to keep it for that reason alone. The plan was to drive west. They were going to take 6 weeks. They were going to see things Garrett had not seen in 8 years. They were going to see things Nora had never seen in 17. They were going to see them as a family. Otis stood in front of the open service bay, his hand raised. Hazel stood in front of the robin's nest, half a block down. apron on, spatula in one hand, the other hand at her mouth, waving. Marshall sat in the passenger seat of Otis's truck, which was idling at the edge of the lot. He had a new dog now, a young one, a border collie. Her name was June. Nora put the motorhome in gear. She drove out of the lot. She turned onto the state highway. She pointed the RV west. Her mother sat beside her with her hand on Nora's hand on the wheel. In the rearview mirror, Nora saw her father's pickup truck pull out of the lot behind her. She saw Otis and Hazel waving from the edge of the road. She saw Marshall lift one hand from inside Otis's truck. She watched them in the mirror until they were small. Then she watched the road in front of her. The road in front of her went on for a long time. In the passenger seat, Adelaide said very quietly, "Sweetheart, I want you to know one thing. Before we drive too much further." "Yes, Mom. I never stopped believing he was coming home," Nora smiled. "I know, Mom. I never stopped believing in him. I know. And I never stopped believing in you." Nora's eyes filled. She did not wipe them. She kept driving. The road ahead was straight. She could afford to cry and drive at the same time. She had grown up enough now to do both. "I know, Mom. I never stopped either." In the back of the motorhome, in the empty space where the locked door used to be, there was a single new framed photograph on the wall. It was a Polaroid. Otis had taken it the morning they left. With an old Polaroid camera he had pulled out of a drawer that nobody knew he had. The picture was of Nora. She was 18 years old. She was standing in front of Brendan's service. She was wearing her father's denim jacket, the one that was still 2 sizes too big. She was smiling the way children smile when they finally understand that the world had taken something from them and then had given it back. She did not see the photograph until they had been on the road for 3 days, when she was looking for a clean shirt in the back, and she saw the photograph on the wall and underneath it, taped to the wall, the way the original picture of her at 9 had been taped to the wall by her father 8 years ago. A folded piece of paper. She unfolded it. She read. The note said in Otis Brennan's handwriting, "Miss Calloway, the price of this motorhome was $9. You have already paid it. There is no more debt. You owe us nothing. We owed your father everything. He paid for all of it years ago. Drive west, drive far, drive happy. Come back when you are ready, and not a day before. We will be here. Otis, Hazel, Marshall." Nora folded the paper. She put it inside the inside pocket of the denim jacket, next to the original photograph of her father, kneeling at a workbench, his hand on her shoulder, both of them smiling. The world had been kind for 9 years, and unkind for 8, and kind again now. She walked back up the hallway to the front. She took the wheel. The road in front of her went on for a long time. She drove.